that's the big question, isn't it? Why have prices remained stubbornly high despite the lower tariffs? And now there's this proposal to legislate an across-the-board wage hike. Now, let's try to break down these issues. We have with us tonight, first up, Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry Director for Labor and Employment Services, Mr. Arturo Butch Guerrero III. Good evening, sir. Welcome to The Big Story. Thanks for taking our call.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much. We invited you here today because the PCCI released a statement today saying, well, the title of it goes, "Leave the wage determination to the regional wage boards." Talk us through what the PCCI's position is as far as the 200 peso daily minimum wage hike that's about to be legislated is concerned.
Okay. Well, good evening. And just to give you a brief background, last year, there was a call for a 150 peso wage hike. And the president said, and also the Secretary of Labor, Secretary Benny Laguesma, together with the employers, informed the public that should be left to the regional wage boards because the regional wage boards knows better what is happening in their respective regions. And the regional wage boards are composed of the labor group, the employers group, and the government. So they would know better. And we just increased in the 18 wage boards all over the country. Only two areas did not increase wages. This was Bicol, because they were devastated with the typhoon, and Davao, because they are still in discussion on how much to increase the wage.
But the House Speaker said that back in 1989, if I am correct, that it was possible to implement a legislated wage hike without triggering inflation. He said if that was possible back then it might be possible now dahil nagtataasan na po ang mga bilihin, and it might be about time to implement a legislated wage hike. Do you think that's possible? I know you want the regional wage boards to determine that, but is it not really possible for Congress to implement something that will not be detrimental to the economy?
That's a very good question. In fact, we have not yet talked to the Speaker of the House, but what we know historically, every time we would increase wages, inflation would follow. Increasing wages would temporarily make the worker catch up with inflation. But in the long run, which is around 6 months to 1 year, inflation almost, and I can assure you, would follow after increasing the wages. But please remember, we just increased wages for the past years. In fact, in the 18 wage boards, if I'm not mistaken, 16 have increased their wages respectively. And these are significant increases which labor and management agreed upon. And in all the study in the ASEAN countries, we are afraid of increasing wages again because not only inflation, but also foreign direct investments would be affected, as well as the prices of goods. And it's worthy to take note that 60% of our working population is in the informal sector, and only around 40% are in the formal sector. And in the formal sector, those who can afford to increase wages are in the large scale. This would be in the bigger companies like San Miguel and the like. And they only comprise less than 1% of total business here in the country. So increasing wages across the board at 200 pesos, which is very significant, would definitely hit on inflation, would trigger massive layoffs, and this would be a lot of job losses, both informal and in the informal sector.
Director, can you talk us through, you mentioned that it would shun foreign investors if we legislated a wage hike, especially one that's 200 pesos across the board nationwide. Can you dive deeper into that and tell us exactly how that can happen?
Okay, you did your research on that. Because we are in Asia, when investors look at us, they look at not only the Philippines, but they look at us in terms of Cambodia, Malaysia, and the other countries, Cambodia, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Thailand. So we have, I think, right now, as of last month, December 2024, we were the second or third highest minimum wage in the ASEAN region. And when you look at industries that are highly labor necessary, like manufacturing, they would always go to a country where labor cost is low. And also to mention to your viewers, it is not only labor that is high in the Philippines, but also the cost of power. We have the highest second cost of power in the ASEAN region. So if you are an investor, you would compute your cost before going into any country, labor and power costs. And if we have one of the very high wages in the ASEAN region, we would deter from foreign direct investments coming in.
Director Butch, your statement, the PCCI statement, makes a solid argument for against rather the wage hike. Chief of which you point out that this country, the lifeblood of this country are the MSMEs, who make up more than 90% of the economy.
Right.
And then you flag the risk of more of these workers from the formal sector, employers moving the work from the formal sector towards the informal sector, and then also passing on the extra cost to consumers. Talk us through how that might happen. What are you guys worried about here?
You're correct. I think 95 or 96% of businesses are in the small and micro. It outweighs greatly the formal sector and the medium and large scale businesses. It will not happen overnight. It would happen slowly, and workers and the flow of capital would migrate from one sector to the other, and foreign direct investments would flow from one country to the other. And what we don't want to happen is the Philippines would be left behind in the development of the ASEAN region. We are not comparing ourselves with Japan and Korea because these are first world countries, especially Singapore. They're on finance and banking. But we are worried about the manufacturing sector, the investment sectors, and the other sectors would follow suit because we are all interconnected, not only in the country, but also the jobs would now flow from the formal into the informal economy, especially when the informal economy is not required to pay the minimum wage. And what we don't want to happen is the legislated wage increase would be politicized. I'm not saying that all the politicians or the legislative branch of government is doing it, but we are just cautioning the the consumers and the public that May of this year we would be having our general elections, and we don't want it to be politicized because it would affect directly the economy and the working sector of our country, especially a lot of workers and a lot of employers as well.
Director Butch, about exactly a year ago, in February of 2024, I believe this was exactly the topic we were talking about. The only difference was it was 100 pesos. That was the amount we were talking about, and now it's double that. And you guys also pushed for to leave the hikes or the termination of the hikes to the wage boards, the regional wage boards. I was just curious, in the year that has passed, did you guys take part in any stakeholder consultations? Because usually that's how, we come up with the number, especially when we're talking about it being legislated and not the wage board determining the amounts. Were you guys consulted at all?
Yes, we were consulted. In fact, we were in Congress several times. Not only the Philippine Chamber of Commerce, which is the largest voice in business, but also the semiconductor industry, the Philippine Construction Association, the Filipino Chamber of Commerce, the Philippine Association of Legitimate Service Contractors, the PhilExport, and the Employers Confederation of the Philippines, and a lot of employers. Nobody in our ranks or nobody in our groups wanted a wage increase. Please take note, it was not a 100 peso wage increase. It was a 150 peso wage increase. There was a 350 peso wage increase. There was a 500 peso wage increase. And there was even a 750 peso wage increase. So this was all, did not pass through the lower house, and it did not pass through the Senate. And all the economic managers of the president said that this would really help the economy. And even former NEDA Secretary Gerardo Sicat said, this is not good for the country in the long term. When he says in the long term, that would be around a year or 2 years down the road. We would be shooting ourselves in the foot with this increase in minimum wage.
I do know we want to attract more foreign investors into the Philippines. So, are you also saying that we should focus on, I guess, strengthening those industries where we can get more foreign investments and get more jobs in tow, vis-a-vis improving standard of living of the ordinary Filipino? I computed the wage hike that was passed last year. It is 35 pesos for NCR. If you multiply it by 26, it's just about 910 pesos a month. Medyo maliit po, no? Compare mo doon sa ito nga pong pinapropose na 200 pesos. If you multiply it by 26, it's about 5,000 pesos. We do know that's quite heavy if you multiply it by the whole workforce. But are you saying we should focus on that, like attracting more foreign investments, and that would spur larger growth for the larger population?
Well, wages is just a part of growing. It's one component, but a very big component of business, because we are required to pay our wages. Everybody works because of wages, and changing the wage structure, changing the way we increase wages, is not beneficial to all workers and employers alike. But there are other ways of attracting foreign direct investments. One would be incentives. Two would be transfer of technologies. Three would be lowering down the cost of power. Fourth would be productivity. There are a lot of things to mention that they would go down. Tourism, gaining more tourists in the country is one way of increasing the economy or stimulating the economy. So wages is a basic component of all businesses, and wages is a basic component of any business investment. So that's where we are coming from. In fact, Conweb, which is a group of textile manufacturers, lost around 16,000 jobs when they increased the minimum wage last year by an average of, you said it, 35 pesos per day. So if you're going to increase it by significantly by 200 pesos, if 35 pesos, 16,000 workers were out of their jobs in one sector, can you just imagine what 200 pesos across the board would
Right.
affect the whole system?
Director Bush, just lastly and very quickly, I understand where you're coming from. This is one of those economic situations wherein, you could see both sides of the argument. On the one hand, yes, we are worried about that it may cause massive layoffs, that the small businesses will bear the brunt, and it'll be devastating for them. But on the other hand as well, the workers are also, reeling from high inflation. I mean, we all feel it. The prices at the supermarkets have not gone down, and wages have not kept up with, market standards in the last 10 years. So what, in your mind, is the best solution to this outside of leaving it to the regional wage boards?
Control inflation, bring down the prices of goods, bring down the prices of food, make it more available. And I think you're aware that there are a lot of hoarders out there trying to increase the prices of basic commodities. I think the government has enough resources to control the prices of goods, and they are doing it right now. But once the basic cost of goods and transportation are maintained, I think that would be better than increasing minimum wage, because it's going to be a chicken and egg or a cat going after its tail. If we keep on increasing wages, that is not the answer to inflation. I think one of the answers to inflation is productivity, increasing it, and lowering the cost of basic goods, which we can do. And I think the government is doing it
Right.
as well with the BPI.
Okay.
Real growth.
It's an impossible task, but we will convey that. Thank you so much for your insights tonight. PCCI Director for Labor and Employment Services, Mr. Arturo Butch Guerrero III. Thanks for your time.